Well, welcome to this final BC Strategies podcast for 2025. Lots of recaps of the year. Everybody gets invited to do podcasts. But what we thought we would do is each of the BC Strategies experts is going to highlight one lesson that, well, either they learned or a vendor learned or the industry learned or maybe that they hope that someone learned for 2025. So we're going to go kind of in the order that we've showed up on the screen here, which means I come first to Blair Pleasant, who often has lots of insights. And so I am looking forward to what lesson do you want to share from 2025?
Okay, thank you. I've got a couple, but I think the main one is the industry learned that you can't just deploy AI and generative AI and expect great ROI. A lot of us have heard about that MIT study and other studies that show, a very large percentage of Gen AI projects have failed in the past year. And I think one thing hopefully we learned is that AI projects fail without two key things: proper end user adoption and training and the right use cases. And, we know that, some companies just throw AI out there because their CEO says, we have to do AI, but they didn't think about the right use cases. And they also didn't provide any training to their end users. So that impacted the adoption. I think one great example of the corollary is contact centers and CX, which have seen, lots of good ROI and success when it comes to AI because they're applying it to, very specific use cases that have a lot of value. And generally, training is provided to agents. So I think generally we've learned, don't expect hard, you can't get hard ROI without putting the work in, is I guess what it is. So you need the right use cases and then user adoption and training to really get the value out of AI and Gen AI.
That is a great lesson. You wrote a great series of articles on No Jitter that focused on this. So everybody who wants to go deeper into that. And then my only pushback would be that MIT study, while your point is valid, that study had some significant flaws, and what got quoted as a bit of a clickbait, that's not exactly what the article said, but your point is 100% valid.
Yeah. And I agree with what you said about the study. I used it as an example because so many people are referring to it.
Yeah, no, it's a great example because people believe it, but it's just like,
I
have this compulsion to go actually read the details, and then I'm like, wait a second, it didn't really say that. But yeah, great. Yes, all the training, change management, user, is important to drive that user adoption. So thank you. That is an important lesson for 2025 and every year that's come before it. But anyway.
Absolutely.
So there you go. Well, so now I'm going to go over to Moshe Beauford. Our newest BC Strategies expert. So Moshe, maybe just like a really short intro, and then we're super thrilled to have you share your lesson from 2025.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm among some very esteemed analysts and people who are just the kings, queens, and of the industry. So I'm so thankful to be here. But I'm reporter, communications expert, and just an expert in this area, and have been writing about this stuff for the better half of 10 years, and really focusing on the channel as of now. But I do cover everything from UCaaS, CPaaS to AI, and everything sort of from networking and all that stuff. So pretty well versed in the industry.
Great. So lesson for 2025.
Yeah, lesson for 2025, I think focusing on the channel, I think that the channel learned you can't just sell an AI-driven solution if your own sort of internal help desk is still running like it's 2019 rather. So let me explain. I think you probably smell what I'm stepping in or understand what I'm saying, of course, but I think the channel's most effective marketing tool for the past decade has been using AI internally to sort of better their outcomes, and then, of course, conversely for customers. So customers have been sort of this vibe check, if you will. What does it mean? If a partner pitches an automated sentiment-aware contact center, but then pulls out, puts a customer on hold for 20 minutes on a legacy IVR, taking them through this never-ending cycle of, I can't get to you, I want to talk to someone for customer service, what have you. I think that deal sort of dies upon arrival, if you will. So the lesson, I think, is that the most successful partners will be using AI themselves to be sort of a beta, if you will, measuring elements such as internal productivity. And I think that partners are using AI internally to auto-generate like maybe things like scopes of work, documents, and scrub messy customer data. And I think just a few ways to leverage the technology, of course. But I think overall, it's going to help sort of reduce the sales engineering cycle, maybe from weeks to hours or to days, of course. But where they have a leg up, I think, comes in the fact that the customer the channel continually discovers these sort of unearthed ways we can use AI. Maybe that's in their tech stack, maybe that's in the customer tech stack. But I think that's going to lead to a lot of potential pluses in the new year for the channel. So I think there's a lot to be explored on that front.
Okay. No, that sounds good. It sounds like a little bit of like, hey, practice what you preach. Like if you're using AI, like you should use it. And I think that that's great advice, because if you're, I've said recently or many times in 2025, AI is going to determine winners or losers. Don't be a loser. In other words, experiment with this stuff. And I think that that's what you're saying for channel partners, which makes a lot of sense. So thank you for that, sharing that lesson and those insights. And now we're going to go over to Chuck Vondra, who is always sitting in front of a chessboard. Are you a chess grandmaster, or is this just something that you aspire to? I don't know. Does your lesson have anything to do with chess?
Well, I keep it back there. I play all the time because it sort of symbolizes strategy, and the name of my company is Communication Strategies. I'm not a grandmaster, but I'm not bad. I'll tell you that.
Okay.
And the guy that I'm playing with in this game back here, I've been playing with for over 50 years. He's my arch nemesis. And we've been at it for 50 years back and forth. So that's that.
Wow. Okay.
In terms of lessons learned, I'm going to sneak a couple in here. One on a macro level. What I've sort of learned in the last year is that AI today is sort of like nuclear energy was in the 1950s in terms of both the positive and negative impacts and the guardrails. If we think about, these images of people watching a bomb go off in their tinfoil suit and their sunglasses, that's how we protected against it back in the 50s. And I sense there's still a little of that naivety in a lot of regulation and oversight today. And there's also a tremendous amount of positive and negative outcomes that are still out there that we haven't gotten into. So on a macro level, that's my lesson. On a very micro level, we do a lot of work helping organizations deploy virtual assistants, IVAs, that initial greeting that you get when you call into an organization. And one thing that I've really seen crystallize this last year is that not all IVAs are alike, that you need to look at your client, what their business is, what their problems are. And there's certain providers that have spent a lot of time developing specific content, use cases around niche industries. So don't just go to the IVA leader and say, well, you're the best. Understand who has actually done work in the space that you're dealing with, who's got examples, content, experience. And we found it's been very enlightening when we've really pulled back the covers and really delved into some of these solution providers in terms of their ability to meet our clients' needs.
Okay, no, that's important. Yeah, not all things that are labeled the same deliver the same results, and you gotta, and I think that's what this group of experts in many ways helps people sort out. So thank you for that. And I also learned I'm not going to play you in chess, because I can play, but I'm definitely, I would not say I'm very good. So I'm not going to challenge you to a chess match in 2026. So moving on, Mr. Danto. You don't have a chessboard. You do have Underdog, which I did watch as a cartoon when I was in kindergarten. Well, before I'd go to half-day kindergarten, Underdog was on, so I'd have lunch and watch Underdog. So I don't know. I don't know if our backgrounds, I don't know if they dictate, kind of our focus, but I don't know. For 2025, what lessons did you take away?
Underdog and Commodore 64. We've got a lot of parallels that we did. Anyway, I'm going to be the contrarian. Surprise, surprise. I think if 2025 taught us anything at all, it's that we really didn't learn very much of anything. And that's probably the biggest takeaway here. This was the year that the hare loudly challenged the tortoise to a race, and the entire industry stopped to watch the hare. Big promises, loud messages, very little patience. There was enormous fascination with speed of AI rollout, speed of pivot, speed of cost cutting. No real discussion about endurance, no real discussion about outcomes, no real discussion about sustainability. We're all very much in the middle of an enormous hype storm right now. Overlapping cycles, half-finished ideas, confident declarations that something's coming and it's inevitable, but nobody can really say what that is. Many companies also convinced themselves that they could be leaner by cutting thousands of employees, particularly in the areas like messaging and storytelling and engineering and all the things that you actually need to run a company, and that explain why products matter, not just that they exist. And already we're starting to see some quiet reversals. I don't know if you guys have been watching LinkedIn like I have, but already you're starting to see some of these bigger firms advertising for storytellers and people who can, make messages gel. And frankly, I don't know who would want to go. I mean, if you're out of job, you'll want to work anywhere, but who would want to go work for a company that would lay off that many people? What's missing is the reflection. There hasn't yet been a pause to ask whether faster is actually better or whether what's inevitable is actually going to be a good thing. It's that Jurassic Park thingy where, just because we could do it doesn't necessarily mean we should have done it. The tortoise hasn't won the race yet either, and most of the industry hasn't even noticed that the tortoise is still moving. The focus remains on ahead. What's ahead? What's coming? I think the lesson learned this year is that it's the year we've set ourselves up for a lesson that's going to be unavoidable in 2026. And I think that unavoidability is going to be separating out the hype from the reality, and we'll learn just what generative AI can do and what it can't do, and what we're not going to be able to do because we don't have enough power and we don't have enough space, we don't have enough cooling. I think we're set for a big fail in 2026.
Okay, well, that's not super optimistic, but I appreciate the lesson. And I also appreciate you've been consistent, throughout 2025 of really drawing attention to the impact of, some of these significant layoffs from these companies that are, oftentimes, having record profitability and just the people aspect. So I have appreciated just how you draw, our attention collectively as an industry to just saying, hey, this people impact is something that we're going to have to watch, because if everybody gets replaced by AI, then, well, and you point this out, who's going to purchase things and what is everybody going to do? So, I've learned that by kind of reading and listening to you. So thank you for that. Over to, now it gets tougher on the bottom row because they have to, maybe these lessons that they were going to talk about have already been brought up. But Robert Harris is watching, I don't know, a fly or something, a drone.
I was trying to look up at Alice in the middle square, but it didn't work out.
Oh, okay. Yeah. There you go. But you looked the wrong way. At least on the video, it needs to be mirrored or whatever. But okay.
Okay.
So Robert, what lesson was key for you in 2025?
Well, there's some things that you can't put a specific date on, but I am marking 2025 as the year that the whole idea for cloud communications, or UCaaS, of 5 nines or 5.9 availability is completely dead. And I'm saying that because we had 2 major outages of Azure that affected Teams calling and also Microsoft 365, one in January and one in October. We then had, in October, we had an Amazon Web Services outage that affected all kinds of different UCaaS platforms, as well as some really critical, including financial software as a service platforms. And then we had, I think it was Cloudflare in November afterwards, that impacted cloud services. And unlike before, I remember a few years ago when this happened, UJet with its multi-cloud solution ended up winning Best of Enterprise Connect. Yeah. This year, there was really just a shrug of the shoulders. Within, as far as the customer base or the market, there was no big migration away from Microsoft or AWS or any UCaaS providers. Customers might have done, the due diligence of looking at the redundancy or failover or, dependencies, and maybe thought about multi-cloud again, but it didn't become some huge priority. Now, what's interesting about this is there's a whole other side of the industry, life safety systems, healthcare, where it still is a huge priority to have 5.9 reliability. these are industries that right now could really leverage the functionality and the integration capabilities of a UCaaS system or CCaaS systems, but probably because the market has accepted that failure is inevitable and just will happen, it'll be a long time before those type of environments can depend on the cloud for any kind of critical communications.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. And I think, yeah, you raise a very valid point that, yeah, the whole 5 nines is kind of like whether you're a Microsoft or Amazon. I mean, those are the two of the biggest players. And so your UCaaS, CCaaS is probably riding on one of them. And so you probably were impacted. And if that didn't get you, then Cloudflare, which is supposed to protect you from denial of service attacks and other things, actually cause problems. So that is, yeah, a good lesson. And I think it's clear that not everything for both resiliency, but increasingly for data sovereignty. I mean, not everything is going to move to the cloud. And there's obviously very valid business reasons for that. So thank you for sharing that lesson. And now we move along to Mr. Jon Arnold, who is a fellow Canadian. Maybe this is a Canadian specific lesson. I don't know, John. What lesson did you take away from 2025?
Oh boy. Okay. Thanks, Kevin. And so I'm on a similar track, certainly to Mr. Danto and some of what Chuck was saying. So I'm not going to rehash that. But I will say, in terms of a lesson learned, variation on that thinking is it's so easy to underestimate how quickly and readily people have come to trust AI and these advanced technologies, because yes, the potential for good is there, and obviously the fails and the not so good are in no short supply. So what my thinking on this is, I think Blair, you mentioned about some of the results we're seeing in the contact center, and I think that's very for us, because we're living in this space. We kind of take it for granted this stuff just works really well. And the successes in contact center have been pretty effective and impressive for some companies. They're getting results, and it shows that, yes, AI can be a good business application for now, but I think it's a bit of an anomaly. I really think that the CX space is kind of its own little universe, because it is the most data rich part of any organization. It always has been. All those KPI metrics that we've had for decades are all based on numbers that are tracked all the time, but they're very, agent centric, not customer centric. But it's kind of like it's a built-in kind of success story waiting to happen when you apply AI to it. So I'm not surprised that it's seeing those good results. But coming back, to that MIT study, when you talk about applications in the workplace where it's not as data centric as the contact center environment, I think it's a hell of a lot harder to kind of pin results on it. And, these jumps to mass firings and everything, it just tells me that I think that we're going to need in 2026 a sharper focus on what's realistic with AI. And to me, what that means is the good use cases where you're going to see benefit has more to do with automating processes. And this is where the thing about agentic kind of worries me. It's if you're going to apply it to right away, finding ways to kind of automate people out of their roles, that's not going to work, because the human in the loop idea is just too central to making AI work long term. So I think there's going to be a little bit, as we talked about earlier, I think a dial back on some of the AI enthusiasm. It's because, all these quick job firings are going to backfire. And like what David said earlier about, give me someone who can actually write and articulate ideas that humans are only good at. That's what I think we're going to see more of next year. And I just wish they would focus more on those use cases that are about automating things that can and should be automated. But you know what? Leave the rest for us, because we're still the better way to do things. Whether that happens or not, I don't know, because this is such an unregulated environment. And unfortunately, the Silicon Valley mentality is just steamrolling over everything right now. So I'll leave it at that. I'm sure Dave Maldow can add to that very quickly.
There you go. I'm not sure that was like painted a rosy holiday picture, but I appreciate the lessons that you took away from 2025, and we're going to go to my AI chef David Maldow. I don't know. We talk a lot about on the AI chefs about AI. What was your lesson from 2025? Did it perchance have something to do with AI? I don't know.
Yeah, it's actually from one of our episodes. But first, I do want to mirror what Jon and Dave and some of the others were saying. Especially in relation to the mass firings. And one of the problems I have with AI, it's not the AI, it's the application. I thought AI was going to be doing my dishes while I'm sitting here playing guitar, and instead I'm doing my dishes while AI is sitting here writing my music. And I didn't come up with that idea. It's a meme, but it's true. And it's not AI's fault that it's good at writing music. It's the fact that I'm applying it to that. I'm not sending it to. I'm not finding it. It's the application. Those people should not have been fired. AI could have been applied in other ways to help them. But I don't want to talk too long. But to explain my takeaway, I do have to give a little context because I am optimistic about AI. I do feel it's one of the big revolutionary. On a level of generational, on the level of when we invented computers, when we invented the automobile, when we invented airplanes, and seeing it being judged on the failures of its early editions, seeing it being judged on what ChatGPT can do today, makes me crazy. I've said this before, I think to many of the people in the same group. The Model T Ford, when it first came out, the steering wheel was bolted on with a big pointy bolt. If you stop short, it puncture your rib cage. You can't judge the concept of automobiles based on the Model T. You can't judge the concept of computer based on the first computer, which was as big as a house. You can't judge ChatGPT based on the fact that I asked it for a gumbo recipe and it recommended that I use a pepper that does not exist in real life. It's annoying, it's a problem, but we got to judge it on the future of ChatGPT. That being said, my takeaway, and this is from one of our episodes, is that not ChatGPT, but AI is going to kill us. It is, and I mean that literally and figuratively. It is going to kill us because why wouldn't it? It doesn't have feelings. It doesn't know the value of a human life, and it sounds like a big joke, but Anthropic, which makes Claude, which is one of the big successful LLMs out there, they know what they're doing. Did a study, and they didn't just study Claude; they studied all of them. And they gave it a situation where they put it to a test, and the AI didn't know it was being tested. It thought it was a real thing, and it killed people. They first told the LLM, here's access to all of a company's emails. And it was a simulation, but it didn't know. And read all the emails and advise the company how to be more profitable. And it read an email. One of the execs said, I want to turn off this AI. So the AI had access to the atmosphere in one of the rooms and turned off the oxygen. As soon as it had the ability to try to kill us, it does. And why wouldn't it? Asimov's Rules of Robotics, that was fiction. There's no guardrails. And okay, hopefully, it's not going to kill us too much, but think of that figuratively, away from the literally, think of it figuratively. If there's no guardrails from it actually killing us, there's no guardrails from it messing up your business, giving you bad advice, giving away your secrets. I mean, all the stuff that we've been fearing. My conspiracy-minded aunt is afraid to use Zoom because she thinks that when she talks about something on Zoom, then she goes to Facebook, she gets ads for it. I'm like, I promise you, I know more than anybody. Zoom is not giving your data to Facebook. And she's like, But with AI, you can be a conspiracy theorist because the government ain't writing no rules. There's no rules, there's no regulations, there's nothing. It's going to kill us.
Well, excellent. So
Merry
that's
Christmas.
so BCStrategies holiday card. Happy holidays. AI is going to kill us. Okay, excellent. So okay, I'm
nice knowing you.
Happy note. I'm gonna share a lesson that and I'm gonna pick on a particular vendor. I'm gonna pick on Microsoft. I think this is a lesson that Microsoft learned in 2025 or hopefully learned. So Microsoft Ignite is their big conference. They went in, everything was about agentic, right? It wasn't only AI, it was about agentic AI and Agent 365. And so you had the head of Windows, Pavan Devlury, came out and said Windows 11 is going to become the agentic OS. And just on Reddit and everywhere on Twitter, everybody says, nobody wants this. We don't need this. Just make Windows 11 work better and fix the bugs. And then the CEO of Microsoft AI, Mustafa Suleyman, came out and said, wow, I'm surprised that people aren't thrilled with all of the wonderful things that AI can do. You can talk to AI and have a conversation, and it is amazing. But this is the lesson that, and it kind of ties back to where we started with you, Blair, which is like with change management, you can't go from, A to E in one step. You have to go A, B, C, D, E. And I do believe that Microsoft, they're looking to the future. And I think that it is going to be agentic, and AI I think is going to be the biggest change to society that we have ever seen over the next 5 or 10 years. But vendors can't be too far ahead of either the use cases, and a lot of people brought that up. You can't be so far in the future that people don't know how to apply it. And I think a lot of the lessons that I heard was the hype. And for me, the hype is the misapplication of AI, because you don't really understand how it works and what the risks are. And to David Maldow's point, if it's going to kill you. And so I think, Microsoft should have learned, hopefully in 2025, but all vendors, you got to meet the customers where they are, or a little bit ahead of where they are. And hopefully if you do that, then 2026 will be a better year for everyone. So there wasn't all positive things, but I appreciated all the lessons. But let's maybe on the count of 3, let's smile and wish all of our wonderful audience happy holidays, at least until the AI takes us out. So 1, 2, 3, happy holidays.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Thank you for watching, and we will have lots more BC Strategies Expert podcasts with all these wonderful diverse opinions and insights in 2026. Bye for now.
Hey, as a disclaimer, no AI deepfakes were used in the production of this broadcast.
There you
as far
go.
as we know.
That's the real Jon Arnold. Yes. Thank you, everyone. Bye for now.
Bye.